New Vegas, despite being a very old game, is still receiving some amazing mods, and we're going to be looking at some mods today that are going to completely overhaul your UI. M.U.X by Anro is a mod that combines multiple of Anro's previously released UI mods that have all now received bug fixes and been merged into a single ESP. And today, we're going to be looking at everything included, so you know just what to expect from this mod. And we'll start things off with PUPD, which overhauls the prompts that appear when looking at items in game. Instead of them appearing statically on the HUD, they're now attached to the item and will follow it when moved. And this is really nice, as it means instead of having your eyes glued to the bottom of your screen, you can actually, look at the items you pick up and instantly be able to see all of the details you need. Or not if you decide to opt for the minimal setting, which will only show the button prompt, or there's simple, which is what I've been using, and it displays only the name of the item and the button prompts. You can change all of this in the mod's UX menu, where you can do things like change the font or even scale the size of the font in game. This is a setting I highly suggest you have enabled, as it's a massive improvement over vanilla and feels a lot more comfortable to use in game, as your eyes don't have to travel as far to see all the information. But let's head to the Capital Wasteland to best showcase the next feature, which might fully replace the vanilla game's compass for you, and that is the 3D compass. And this will add floating markers above locations and doors, meaning you'll no longer have to be constantly glancing underneath your health bar to see which locations are nearby. Unmarked locations will have a question mark icon, whereas known locations will have their corresponding icons. Using the UX menu, you can tweak various things such as the distance the icons disappear at. Now, I found that actually having the HUD elements in the in-game world and minimal on screen is actually quite nice, and this feature allows you to do just that, as you can disable the compass without losing any information from it. And whereas this may be a bit more subjective than PUPD, I think it's one you should really try out. Although with just 3D compass, you're not going to be able to track enemies through walls like you could with the vanilla game's red dots. That is, unless you also enable the targeting UI, which is a mechanic similar to those found in the Far Cry games, allowing you to tag enemies. Customizing it in the menu allows us to choose various methods of tagging, from only being able to do it with binoculars to on damage, on aim, or by scoping in on them. This is one of those things that'll make your stealth playthroughs much more enjoyable, as being able to see the enemies through walls really ups the tension as they start edging closer and closer to you. But if you dislike the idea of being able to view the enemies through walls but still wish to tag them for the added visibility, well, don't worry, because you can disable the wall hacks in the settings. But you've probably noticed that in my game the icons for marked enemies isn't the only thing appearing above their heads, as M.U.X also includes floating health bars, which, as the name suggests, adds, a floating health bar above the NPCs. It can be customized to show up on all NPCs or enemies only, and it will respect line of sight, which means you're only going to be able to see the health bars of enemies that are visible to you. Kinda similar to the Soulsborne series, these health bars will show how much damage your hit did with this white bar that goes down to the enemy's actual HP, which is whatever colour your HUD is. Now, this is something I highly suggest you enable if you dislike how the vanilla game handles health bars, with you only being able to see one enemies at a time. Although the style of the health bar is different to the vanilla games, don't worry, we have a solution for that later on. But before that, if you want a more accurate look at your damage, then you're going to want to turn on the floating damage, which will add floating damage numbers that can be highly customized in the UX menu. That'll display just how much damage you are dealing to an enemy. It can be highly customized, allowing you to change things such as the size, the font, the scale, and whether or not it displays text when you get a critical hit, or cripple a limb. Another included feature though is Scavenger, and this can be a bit more hit or miss depending on what you like in your game. It'll add icons to lootables or items you can pick up, and the icons themselves are really nice and I love how it looks. And since enabling this feature, I've found some items that I've definitely missed on prior playthroughs. Unfortunately though, it can get a bit overwhelming at times. As it doesn't respect line of sight, you're going to be able to see icons through walls. It's not the worst of the Mojave, but in some locations where there's a ton of items, it can be a bit much, so I can understand if you don't want to enable this one, but I suggest you at least try it out. But something that you're definitely going to want to have enabled though is going to be the Item Explorer. It works similarly to how ESP Explorers work in Fallout 4, in that you assign it to a hotkey in the UX menu, and from then on pressing the key will show all active ESPs and ESMs in your game. Clicking on them brings up several categories, such as ammo, ingestibles, or even perks, and from then on just find the item you want, click it, and it will be added to your inventory. I'm not gonna lie, this is honestly essential for me. It makes my job 1,000 times easier, and if you're wondering just how it compares to the old item browser mod, this one is so much faster, as it can be brought up in game, although it does miss some features of the old mod, such as being able to view cells. However, the speed of this one easily makes up for it, and it's worth using over the old mod in my opinion. But as I mentioned earlier, as you've probably noticed, the HUD I'm using isn't vanilla. It's from the recently released M.U.X Series interface overhaul. Currently, there's only 2 of the 9 presets released, Enhanced Vanilla and Modern UI. Modern UI matches the style of the floating health bars and provides a stylized, simple aesthetic, whereas Enhanced Vanilla feels more like an updated version of the vanilla New Vegas UI, but with some modern tweaks. Both of these can be picked up from the Interface Overhaul mod page. Simply install the main file, then pick your desired preset from the optional files. If you are using one of the standalone versions of any of the mods covered, be sure to uninstall them and be sure to pick up the version from the M.U.X Interface Overhaul page or UXC, as the older versions are depreciated and no longer supported. Overall, with these two mods, you can vastly overhaul your user interface in Fallout New Vegas. With all the prior mentioned mods, I found that I was actually looking around in the game world more, especially with the 3D compass, as you no longer need to keep your eyes glued to the bottom of the screen. Now there's two other features, one being reload reminder, which is relatively simple and it will give you a reminder to reload your gun similar to what's in the Call of Duty games. But then there's also controller tweaks, which reworks the vanilla hotkey system, allowing you to assign a key to things such as a sprint button. Now unfortunately I don't actually have a working controller at the moment to test this out, but I'm sure that if you're a controller player this is a function you're definitely going to want to have enabled. All the mods will require vanilla UI+, so if you haven't already made the switch, then be sure to do so. As if you didn't know, there's some really easy tweaks you can do to get vanilla UI to look a lot smaller. So if you're used to Darn's small UI, well you can achieve the exact same thing with vanilla UI+. Just by editing the font's XML file like I do here, you can easily change it to look a lot smaller, and is an edit I'd highly recommend you make. But anyways, that's gonna be all for today. I have a Discord server now and it's linked in the description, so feel free to join. With that being said though, I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you all next time.